Okay, we okay, Alex?
Yep.
You okay, Ellen? Okay.
Good.
Good to go? Okay. Welcome, folks, to my second planning board meeting for December the 7th. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Do we have any declarations of conflicts for any of the 6 items I believe we have to discuss tonight? Anybody in conflict? Okay, having none, could we have an approval of the agenda for Monday, December the 7th, 2020?
So moved.
Moved by who?
Bobby?
And seconded by Reg.
Okay, did you get those, Ellen, both of them?
Yep, I got it.
It's fuzzy here, that's why I keep repeating it. I don't want to lose anybody or miss anybody. Okay, any discussion? Having no discussion, all those in favor? All those opposed?
Aye.
I assume they carried 10-0 or 9-0, whatever it takes. The adoption of the minutes of the planning board meeting on Monday, November the 2nd. I'm sorry, did we do the agenda? Okay, the approval of the minutes emanating from that particular meeting. Any questions or any issues, concerns, suggestions? Having none, could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Alana Yankoff,
Seconded, Chris.
Chris, that the minutes of November 2nd be adopted as presented. All those in favor? All those opposed? Moved unanimously, whatever the numbers add to. Any business arising from those minutes? Having none, we'll move on to the reports. We have, I believe, 4 reports under the variance issue, and we have 2 as kind of what you would call returnees. So, the first report would have to do with 20 Upper Hillsborough Street. And that would be, let me get my act together here. 20 Upper Hillsborough Street will be presented by Emily Trainer. You there, Emily?
I think she's muted.
Muted, maybe so. You waving, Julie?
Hi, folks, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now, Emily. Are you okay?
Sorry about that. I'm all good. I was saying I'm here. So good evening, everybody.
Were you suffering from a little bit of muteness?
I was suffering for a minute, but I'm back on track.
Okay.
And I'd love to turn your attention to 20 to 22 Upper Hillsborough. So bear with me. I'm going to try and take control of the screen so I can show you my slide deck. Ellen, do you have to give me control?
I'm sorry, say again, Emily?
I just have to take control so I can show you my slide deck. So I think I need to request that from Ellen.
Okay, thank you.
No, you can share your screen now. You have the ball. You have the presenter button.
Oh, okay. Understood. There we go.
There you go.
Everybody can see that?
Yes?
Perfect. Okay, so we're looking at 20 to 22 Upper Hillsborough Street. So we received a request from the property owner, Nick Hennessy. Nick is looking to convert the existing duplex dwelling on the property to a 4-unit apartment building. So you can see in your package there, he submitted a survey plan and floor plans in support of this request. And Nick is not proposing any addition to the existing building footprint to accommodate this conversion. But in order for us to permit this conversion to go ahead, 2 variances are required. So one is to reduce the required lot area from 115 square meters per unit to 108 square meters per unit. And the other is to reduce the required lot frontage from 25 meters to 18 meters. The lot area variance is categorized as minor under our zoning and development bylaw, and we received no objections to this minor variance within the 14 days of public notice. So for that reason, under the zoning bylaw, the Planning and Heritage Department has delegated authority to approve this lot area variance. So what we're asking you folks to consider tonight is the major variance, which is the second one, to reduce the required lot frontage. What I will do to help you folks consider this is just give you some background on the property and the surrounding neighborhood context. So this property is an interior lot, and it's located on the east side of Upper Hillsborough Street. It has fencing that separates this property from adjacent properties at the moment surrounding the perimeter of it. And the property is zoned medium-density residential under the zoning bylaw and designated medium-density residential under the city's official plan. And when we look at the surrounding properties, just immediately surrounding this lot, they are also, for the most part, zoned medium-density residential, so R3 as well. Just with the exception, I'll show you on the next slide, with the exception of one lot to the northwest, and that is 25 Upper Hillsborough Street, and that's zoned low-density residential R2. And when we look at our provincial tax assessment data, we see that there's a mix of low to medium density residential dwelling types that currently surround this property. So starting to the south, there is 14 to 16 Upper Hillsborough Street. The provincial tax assessment data says there's 4 units within the building at the moment. And then to the west, we have 26 Upper Hillsborough Street. It has 9 units under the tax assessment. To the northwest, 23 Upper Hillsborough Street, it has 2 units. And then to the north and also to the east, so 24 Upper Hillsborough Street, and then these guys over here on Orlebar Street, so 15 and 17 Orlebar Street, those folks all have single detached dwellings. And then 11 to 13 Orlebar Street to the east, it has 2 units there. So that kind of gives you a feel for the property and the surrounding area as well. And in terms of public feedback that we received on the variance application, we received 2 letters of support within the comment period. You have that in your package there. You can see it in the attachments. And also, we received 1 letter of objection, but it was after the comment deadline, so we got it on Saturday. And since it's not included in the package, just to give you a quick summary, the letter is from Tom Burns, and Tom owns 58 Walton Drive, so just to the northwest of this property. And just in summary, Tom's comments is that, you know, this is a residential neighborhood with many single detached dwellings, including his own. He mentions that the bylaw was created to protect this neighborhood. So he's wondering why the planning board is entertaining the idea of a variance here. And he also speaks to the higher densities and the growth negatively impacting as a whole within the city of Charlottetown, negatively impacting livability. So that's just a quick summary there of that letter. Now to move along to just give you a quick overview of the policies and regulations that we looked at in order to support our recommendation to you folks. We looked at official plan policies. So there's policies in section 3.1.2 that promote compact urban form and infill development, making efficient use of infrastructure and public service facilities. So we found that this conversion would be categorized as compact urban form that maximizes the use of existing underground services. And it's near a center of employment as well, so it's just 65 meters north of the 500 lot area. So that's supported by those policies that I mentioned. There's also policies in the official plan that speak to allowing moderately higher densities in neighborhoods and making provisions for multiple family dwellings in the downtown core, in suburban centers and around these centers, provided that the density will not adversely affect existing low-density housing. There's also policies speaking to preserving the built form and density of Charlottetown's existing neighborhoods, ensuring that new development is harmonious with this surrounding context, and ensuring that the footprint, the height, massing, and setbacks of new residential in existing neighborhoods are physically related to its surroundings, and establishing appropriate relationships between the height and density of new development and mixed-use residential areas of existing neighborhoods. So we found in our assessment that these objectives and policies, the proposed conversion is supported by these because it's going to result in a moderately higher intensity use on the lot that's harmonious with this mix of low to medium density residential I described on the surrounding lots, and that the conversion, it doesn't involve any additions to the existing building footprint. So for that reason, it would not adversely affect those adjacent low-density residential properties. We know that there's currently a demand for dwelling units in the city of Charlottetown, and we have policy in section 3.3.1 of our official plan that says we shall provide medium density housing styles to meet future housing needs. And then we also find policy support for medium intensity form of infill development, which we would categorize this proposed development as. We have that policy support in our official plan as well. So for these reasons, we feel that the proposed conversion is supported by the policies and objectives of our official plan. And now just to go into the zoning and development bylaw, this lot frontage variance that we're asking you folks to consider tonight, what the applicant is proposing is a deficiency of about 7 meters relative to the requirement for lot frontage in an R3 zone, and as it relates to apartment dwellings as well. So they're off by about 7 meters or 28% relative to the bylaw requirement. And despite this deficiency, there's a section in our bylaw, regulation 6.2.1, that speaks to undersized lots. So when a person owns a lot and it has less than the minimum frontage or area required by the bylaw, it shall not be deprived of the ability to make reasonable use of the lot in accordance with the zone in which it's located. So having had looked at the existing mix of low to medium density residential on those surrounding properties, knowing that the applicant is proposing to maintain the existing building footprint of the existing duplex during the conversion, and knowing that we have these supporting policies of the official plan, it's the opinion of our department and myself that the proposed conversion represents reasonable use of the lot in accordance with our zoning bylaw. So we also know that should the variance be approved, any renovations that would relate to the conversion, it's going to be subject to the building and development permit approval process. And also just to mention that the applicant had previously proposed a second driveway access for this conversion off of Upper Hillsborough Street, but based on comments received from the Public Works Department, they had removed that second driveway. So they're proposing to maintain that existing single driveway off of Upper Hillsborough and to add 2 parking spaces to the rear of the property to serve these additional dwelling units. So in our survey plan, we see this information and we see that it meets the zoning and development bylaw requirements. So I just have on the screen here a summary of these kind of positive attributes that I went through with you folks, and then the shortcoming being the deficiencies relative to the zoning requirements. So that kind of concludes my overview of the application, and if you folks have any questions or concerns, I'm here to speak to those.
Thank you, Emily. Folks, any issues, concerns, suggestions, questions? Everybody A-okay? Okay. Thank you, Emily.
I'm going to just put the resolution on that we accept planning board's recommendation, Mike.
Sorry, say again?
I said I will put a resolution on that we accept planning board's recommendation.
Thank you.
Nice.
Thanks. It's moved by Julie McCabe, seconded by Alana Yankoff, Councilor Alana Yankoff, that the 2022 Upper Hillsborough Street be moved, recommended to council for approval. Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Is there anyone opposed? Okay. Have you got that, Owen?
Yep, got it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emily. And
Thank
by the
you,
way,
folks.
welcome aboard. Moving on, folks, to 40 Belvedere Avenue, and this particular issue will be addressed by Robert Silke. Robert?
Good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
And, yep.
Yep.
Perfect. So the application tonight before you in regards to 40 Belvedere Ave, initially it was a minor variance, considering that they were just asking for less than 10% for a lot area reduction. This would result in 1 additional unit from a proposed 6-unit addition that they were applying through the building permit process. So effectively, they were initially applying for 5 units. They found out they were just shy of doing 6 units. So the variance itself, its minor nature, is just for 1 additional residential apartment. And that would bring up then the total number of dwelling units on site to 18.
Okay. Is that it, Robert?
Nope. Just getting to the controls here.
Okay.
Oh, this is basically the context of the site. It is a corner lot. It's on the corner of Belvedere and Rosemount Drive. Just to give some context, the property is zoned. There is an R3 zone on the property. Basically, all the properties along Belvedere Ave is zoned medium density residential, with low density residential situated to the south or to the rear of the subject property. So as you can see from the ortho photo, very similar uses. You're dealing with multi-unit residential apartments. This is a proposed site plan, so outlined in red is the proposed addition. This would effectively have be a 2-story addition with 6 additional units. They've included additional parking just to the north off of Belvedere Avenue. Now, normally, a minor variance could be approved by staff. However, since we circulated this application to surrounding property owners, we received 4 objections within the prescribed time for public feedback. And those 4 objections basically all had a common theme. The common theme was that there was a lack of sanitary practices in regards to the on-site handling and storage of waste and compost. So there was concern by all surrounding property owners that creating additional units would worsen the situation. And particularly the property owners that had the most concern we're property owners that have addresses onto Ashburn Crescent, so just behind, south of the subject property. So those, currently the waste bins, they're all individual waste bins. They're lined up against the southern property line, and they're just adjacent to both 3 and 7 Ashburn Crescent. So those properties have experienced multiple issues relating to unsanitary waste disposal. So they've had rodent issues, and we've had some photos that were actually submitted by some of the property owners in the area that shows kind of how the waste is growing out of control. So normally under section 3.3.8 of the zoning development bylaw, we do have the ability to require waste to mitigate potential conflicting land uses that could occur, in this case from additional density. So knowing that there is already an on-site waste handling issue, what we're going to be proposing is that there be a condition subject to the approval of the variance that the individual bins are replaced with with dumpsters, so waste, compost, and recycling dumpsters. That would be two things that would basically ensure that the waste is actually contained and not causing nuisance issues for the neighboring property owners, as well as it frees up additional space on site for parking. So this is kind of the analysis in regards to the proposed dwelling additions. Obviously, you have compact urban form, infill along built-up and serviced areas, and the building height itself, it's still within a mitigated use of 2 stories, so it still adheres to surrounding built form of other properties. And again, the only shortcoming is just the sanitary issues that have come on site. So we would recommend that it be approved, but that prior to occupancy permit being released for the 6 additional units, that the individual bins be replaced with the dumpsters. And I can take any questions. Thank you.
Robert, I'd just like to add that I was contacted a couple of times over the years on this property regarding this garbage all over the place. It was terrible. So I would add not only that dumpsters be employed, but dumpsters be employed that are 125% or 150% of the normal capacity. But because what would happen is on seasons like we're in now, Christmas, especially after Christmas, when they start lugging these things out of the apartments, they don't take them back in when they realize the container, whatever container it is, when it's full. They just dump them to the side, and it just builds and builds and builds. So I would say 125% at least of the normal, because you have to have capacity for the abnormal or the busy season for garbage buildup. Anyway, that's just a suggestion. Members of the board, any questions of Robert, concerns, issues? Councillor Yankoff?
Thank you. Thank you for your report, Robert. I'm just wondering, what contingencies are you putting in place, or what processes to ensure that when these dumpsters are replaced, that the ongoing issues don't continue for the other residents in the area? Like, will there be inspections? Like, how will that work, Robert?
Yeah, so we're limited to like follow-up in regards to how those impacts can be mitigated. All what we require is that, and again, that could be something is looking at having excess capacity for these bins, for these containers. But essentially, what would happen is that if garbage is still being thrown around on site, or they're not being contained in the actual bin, then that would become a property standards issue that would have to be applied and levied by bylaw enforcement. Also, Island Waste would have to be contacted as well, because they're integral into the process of ensuring that the bins can be readily accessed by their operators for on-site waste pickup. But effectively, how it would be controlled going forward is that it would have to be pursued through a bylaw enforcement action.
I might add also, Robert, that there may have to be an indication in the resolution that the and I know it's not in the landlord's purview, the pickup times. These guys are out all hours of the night, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, banging and clanging, especially on University Avenue behind McDonald's. And we have a housing lot area, Newland Crescent behind, and these guys are clanging and banging at 4:30, 5 o'clock, and it's not appreciated. So the pickup time should be ensured to be during normal working hours. Anyway, that's just my comment. Anyone else a comment for Robert? Councillor Goff?
Yeah, thank you. Just one more, just to confirm. So the permit will be granted once the new dumpsters are on site. Is that correct?
So the building permit would be released so they can start construction on the actual structure, like on the addition. What we would withhold is the occupancy permit in order for that, for those additional apartment units to be legally occupied by residents. So they would have to have the bins replaced with the containers, with the waste containers, prior to our office signing off on occupancy.
Robert, it's Rosemary, and I'm just wondering, how often would the dumpster be emptied?
I can't specifically comment on how many times a week. I believe that would be Island Waste Management. It's whatever would be congruent with their schedule. I know that in an apartment building that I stayed at, it was usually emptied once a week. But again, I would have to defer to Island Waste Management on that.
Thank you.
I do have a question, Basil.
Basil, go ahead.
What happens there? Is there notice given to the bylaw enforcement office that this property should be followed up on to monitor for some time that they are cleaning up the garbage, that it is, the dumpsters are there and the garbage is being cleaned up?
So the position of bylaw enforcement is that they operate on a complaint basis, so they don't proactively go out and look for conflicting issues with the bylaw. So what would have to occur is that if waste became out of control, then a complaint would have to be lodged with bylaw enforcement and they would follow up with enforcement action.
Believe me, those 4 people that sent letters, they are not shy to complain. There'll be a watchdog out there, that's for darn sure.
I just have a follow-up too. I think that, even with a dumpster based on those pictures, because it looks like they all have those bin, so that it's overmaxed. So one dumpster, even if it's the bigger one, it should be maybe worked out. I think they'll pick it up whenever, as long as you pay for it. So that might be something in an agreement you could work out where once a week it is picked up.
Yeah, the size and the pickup schedule. Thank you, Councillor. Gabe? Okay, anyone else, please? Do I have a move for the... I'm sorry, go ahead, Robert.
Sorry, I didn't say anything.
Oh, sorry. Anyone else?
I'll move that we accept Planning Department's recommendation to Council to accept the variance, the major variance.
Okay. Been moved by Reg McGinnis. Seconded by, is that Basil? I'm getting garbled messages here through this phone, so I'm just taking a shot in the dark when I identify somebody by their voice only. Is that you, Basil, that was seconding it?
Sorry, that was me, Shallon.
Okay, Shallon, thank you. All right, it's been moved by...
Mr. Chair, it's just Robert online. Can I just make a point of clarification?
Sure, Robert, go ahead.
Just to clarify that in cases where a minor variance goes before the planning board, if the planning board agrees with the planner's recommendation, it does not have to proceed to city council. In fact, it can be approved by the development officer.
Okay, that's great. All right.
Put those conditions in there, or at least talk to the developer, Robert.
Say again, please.
I just said, can you, make sure you at least talk to the developer or put those conditions in your approval with the developer?
Through the chair to Councilor McKay, that's certainly something that I would clearly list on conditions of the building permit, as well as send out a specific email to Island Waste and the owner, ensuring that they started discussions to replace those bins with the containers.
Yep.
Okay. Is that okay, Councillor? Silence is consent?
But I'll also modify the motion to say that my recommendation is to the planning department, not to council, to approve the minimum required distance.
Okay, I understand. Do you have that, Ellen, that comment?
Yes, got it. Yep.
Okay. Was everybody okay? Ready for Bob?
No, I was just voting yes.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Ready for the question then? All those in favor of the resolution as presented, all those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed? Easier this way, I can only see some of you. Is there anybody opposed? Okay, Ellen, you got that?
Yes.
Thank you. No, nobody opposed. Moving on to our third application, being 219 Mina Jane Drive, and this particular application will be addressed by Laurel Thompson. I think I hear Laurel saying hello, but it's not on my electronics. I think Alex is in with her now.
Yeah, I'm not hearing a Laurel.
No.
No, either am I. But she's trying to get through.
Okay.
This has not been a premium afternoon. My mother said, cheer up, things could be worse, so I cheered up, and sure enough, things got worse.
Can you guys hear me now?
Hear me now, Laurel, loud and clear.
Perfect.
Floor is yours.
Thanks. Yeah, it hasn't been a smooth afternoon, has it?
It's odd.
I'm gonna shut this door. Okay.
Okay, it's all yours.
Just gotta get to my spot. So,
You're there.
This is a request for a variance under section 3.8 minor variances and 3.9 major variances. And the variances are the property located at 219 Mina Jane Drive, which is lot 52B. The request for the minor variance is for the minimum lot area requirement of 1,237.9 square feet to increase the density from 55 units to 60 on this lot right here. The purpose is to construct a 60-unit apartment building, which is the building right here where I'm pointing. So this property is zoned highway commercial C2, which permits residential development. It's subject to the R4A apartment zone regulations, section 18 of the zoning and development bylaws. And it abuts two streets, Mina Jane Drive, which is private, and Malpeck Road, which is a Maritime Electric property, and lands owned by Pan American Property. Within the development area, there's a 60-unit apartment building at 215 Mina Jane Drive, and there's also a proposal to construct a 96-unit apartment building at 197 Mina Jane Drive.
The rest of the lands are commercial, occupied by commercial establishments. So, as per the bylaw, section 3.8 and 3.9, planning staff notice of the meeting to property owners within 100 meters of the subject property. And the deadline to submit comments on this variance request was on Friday, December 4th at 12 p.m. We did receive one letter in response to the notification letter, and that letter was from APM McLean, and they stated that they do not object to the proposed development or the variance request. However, they did state concerns regarding site drainage and surface water runoff. And we've attached that letter to your package. So given that there were no objections specific to the variances for height or density, the minor variance related to density does not require planning board's approval, and it will be approved at the staff level. However, the major variance requires recommendation from the planning board. So, therefore, if you examine the site, the proposed apartment building, it will be located end-on to Malpeck Road. So it's right here. This is Malpeck Road. The building will face Malpeck Road. And this is the front facade of the building. And in October of 2017, a similar variance was approved for the building 215 Mina Jane Drive, which would be this building right here, adjacent to it. So this is phase 2 of the original site plan that was submitted for the 2017 project, and it will be constructed in line with the existing building on Mina Jane Drive. So in context of the streetscape, the proposed building, although oriented onto Malpeck Road, it will present well. It follows the same design as the first building, and the developer has incorporated a considerable amount of design elements into these buildings so that there is a facade along Malpeck Road. Development in this area isn't densely compact, or isn't densely compacted, and many buildings tend to be 1 to 2 story box stores within the power center. So in this area here. With the exception of 2 Mina Jane Drive, that building is 65.2 feet average grade to top of roof, and that's the building that was constructed in 2017. There's also a 5-story 97-unit apartment building that's proposed at 197 Mina Jane Drive, so right here. And these 2 buildings will be subject in height. It'll be height to the adjacent buildings, so it will be similar in bulk, mass, and scale. The applicant's proposing 52 standard spaces, all on site, and with underground parking, and 21 standard surface parking spaces. There will be 1 underground barrier-free space and 2 surface barrier-free spaces. So there's going to be a maximum of 73 standard spaces included underground and on the surface. So that would be the total parking on site, and they're required to have 60 standard spaces as per the bylaw. So they've also incorporated a considerable amount of green space, including sitting areas with landscaping consisting of trees and shrubs around the perimeter of the property. You can kind of see the trees and shrubs here. They have a small gazebo area. The adjoining property, they incorporated lawn bowling, a few items like that for the residents in the development. The main entrance to this complex is off of Mina Jane Drive. It will share the existing entrance as the building that was constructed in 2017, so there will be a shared access. It is located on Malpeck Road, and that road is arterial, and by nature, arterial roads are categorized as high-capacity urban roads. They usually contain higher densities than collector or local streets, but generally less access points for residential development, and that's the purpose of the access off Mina Jane Drive. The site's adjacent to the Sears Power Center. It's across the street from Land Zone Light Industrial with retail uses. You can see over here where the Kent store is located. It's 1.6 kilometers of a major retail facility, the Charlottetown Mall, a grocery store and movie complex, and the apartment building is compatible with uses and services in the area. It's located on a major bus route. So the project would be categorized as compact urban form, and it would maximize the use of existing underground near centers of employment. And I've listed various sections in the official plan that would support this request. They're included within your report. Currently, there is a demand for high density development in the city. And this particular project would satisfy that. It's compatible with commercial development in the area and other apartment dwellings. The official plan supports infill development through flexible zoning provisions, and this lot would be considered an infill lot. It's currently vacant, and there are other multi-unit apartment dwellings in the area, so it's falling in line with those. I've also included a quick summary within the report of the positives, neutral, and shortcomings of the proposal, and they're listed. And overall, staff feel that this proposal is in line with the objectives of the official plan. Its comparison in height, mass, and scale of the adjoining apartment buildings, and it would contribute to the streetscape. So we are encouraging planning board to recommend the council to approve the request. I can answer any if there is any.
Thank you, Laurel. Any questions of Laurel, folks? Concerns, issues?
I have a question.
Councilor Yankoff.
Thank you. Hi, Laurel. Thank you so much for your report. Just wondering, is this development on the bus route? Are there amenities close by? Can you just talk to that for me? Thank you.
Well, the Sears Power Center is a shopping center. It has considerable growth, has had considerable growth over the past couple years. There's also a master concept plan in place for that development. We also have the 10th store across the street. It's located on a bus route, so there is a bus that stops within the power center. It's close to the Charlottetown Mall. There's various services there, the Sobeys, on the Charlottetown Mall, which has a theater and various retail services. So it is, within an area that we would consider appropriate for this type of development.
Great. And just a quick follow-up. Sidewalks to get to some of these different areas if people wanted to walk instead of take the bus?
There isn't sidewalks along Malpeque Road, but it's what was that? Sorry, I didn't hear.
Oh, do you want to repeat?
Hello?
Councilor Yankoff?
Sure. And if there's sidewalks and or active transportation, just to give the people the ability, can they walk to some of these amenities safely?
Well, you can definitely walk within the Sears Power Center to those amenities. Malpeque Road, I don't believe there's sidewalks along Malpeque Road, but there isn't a dedicated bus or a bike route along Malpeque Road, but there is a bus route, and a lot of people take bus, like public transit, to these types of facilities.
Thank you, Laura.
I mean, you're not looking at a small neighborhood context. It's not you wouldn't categorize this as a low density residential neighborhood. You're in an area where there is more commercial development, higher density development. These types of buildings are generally located in these areas. Definitely sidewalks are an added bonus, but you don't always see this form of development in lower density to medium density neighborhoods.
Thank you, Laura. Anyone else? Questions, concerns, views, suggestions?
I have a question. It's Rosemary, and Laurel, thanks for your report. I'm just wanting to clarify, is this going to be the third large apartment building, if I followed your comments correctly, in that area?
The third?
Third, so there's one there already. There is approval for another one. And then would this be the third one?
This would be the third. There is a proposal for 197 Mina Jane Drive. That is under appeal right now, but this current proposal was brought forward in 2017. For phase one of that development happened in 2017, 2018, and the lot was purchased by the developers at that time for the second building, and we did talk about that at the planning board meeting at that time. They didn't seek approval at that time for a variance for that building, but they are back now for a height variance to build a similar building.
I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit more about the green space, because I do have a concern that there's a lot of people living in that area that is primarily commercial, and it seems to be kind of a mismatch of living space and commercial space. And, you know, you do wonder about people's ability to walk and get out in green space and when they're surrounded by a lot of commercial development.
Well, there isn't a requirement under this development for them to dedicate 10% parkland. This isn't a major subdivision. If it was, then we would be looking at 10% of the area to be dedicated for parkland. But they are required under the bylaw to give 10% of their lot for landscaping, and they have included that. There is more than 10% of the lot dedicated to landscaping if you look on the site. So here's your parking, the central area, and then the remainder is landscape is around the perimeter. This is the building that's currently constructed. Here's the landscaping, and then it goes along the front and then around the back of this proposed building.
Okay. Yep. Okay, Rosemary?
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else? Issue, concern? Okay. Do I have a mover? The development officer has recommended approval of this particular application. Do I have a mover? Is that you, Chris, or is that you, Bob?
That's Bobby.
Bob, you're moving to approve? Thank you.
Yes.
Do I have a seconder?
Chris can second it.
Chris is seconded. Moved by Bob, seconded by Chris, that the application at 219 Mina Jane Drive be accepted, or approved, I'm sorry. Any further questions, discussions? Councilor Yankoff, did you have your hand up there? No? No one else? Anyone? You ready for the question then? All those in favor? All those opposed? Anyone opposed? Okay. You go okay, Ellen?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, folks. The final variance to deal with this evening is one from 50 Grafton Street, and Laurel has this one.
Yes. So this is 50 Grafton Street, and this request is for a frontage variance. Seems we've been getting a few of those lately in the downtown. So the property is located in the downtown mixed-use neighborhood zone, and the frontage variance is to allow the subject property to contain an additional dwelling unit on the ground floor for a total of 7 residential dwelling units. This is the location of the... So, the planning department's records indicate that 50 Grafton Street contains 6 documented and legally approved residential dwelling units. The downtown mixed-use neighborhood zone requires that apartment dwellings 4 units or more have a minimum frontage of 65.6 feet, and this property has a frontage of 57 feet. And that's the reason for the applicant's request for variance. So they're asking to reduce it from 65.6 to 57 feet to allow for the 7th residential dwelling unit in the building. So the property, it is located in the corner of Grafton and Connell, and it's located in the downtown 500 lot area. It's a short walk, 1 to 2 blocks of the downtown Main Street and core with this direction. And there's various services, shopping, restaurants, and theaters that can be accessed there. Buildings in this area are mixed use, and they range from commercial office buildings, single detached dwellings, multi-unit apartment buildings, and commercial retail. The city's RAP show that renovations were approved in 1983 to convert this building to a unit apartment building, and currently there's 2 units on each floor of this building. So there's 2 units on the ground, the second, and then on the third in this attic space. So the request is to convert the ground floor from 2 to 3 units. There's currently 1 3-bedroom unit and 1 small bedroom unit on the ground floor, and they've requested a 3-bedroom unit into 2 apartment dwellings. So you would enter through this door. There's currently a small unit here, and then this unit on this side would be split too. There's a second entrance on the back end off of Pownell Street to access what would be the second unit. So, as per section 3.93 of the bylaw, notice was sent to property owners within 100 meters of this building. And the deadline to submit written comments on the application was Friday, December 4th, 2020. We received six letters in support. At the time we sent the package out, there was 5. We received another one today. There was also 1 letter received that cited concerns about the condition of the building. The letter stated they're not opposed to the variance if improvements are made to the building. But if the building isn't improved, they had concerns about the living conditions in the building, and then they would be opposed if the building wasn't improved. Additionally, we did receive a letter from the property owner. That letter stated his rationale for requesting the frontage variance, and a letter was also received from the property manager stating his support, and we've attached those letters to your package. The applicant has stated that no changes to the building is required in order to accommodate an additional apartment on the ground floor. So they won't be changing anything on the facade or the side. There will be no additional doors put in. Therefore, the additional unit, it won't alter how the building appears along the streetscape. Although the property contains 6 legal residential dwelling units, the bylaw requires that apartment buildings with 4 units or more in the DMUN zone have a minimum frontage of 65 points. And the reason for this, it ensures that the lots within the downtown are large enough to accommodate reasonable density and amenity areas for residents where rents tend to be higher and in demand. The current bylaw would only allow for a maximum of 3 units on a property with less than 65.6 feet of frontage in the DMUN zone, and therefore pre-existing additional units that are in this building would be considered legal non-conforming units. The request to add an additional 7th unit would be expanding on an already legal non-conforming use, which would further exceed the requirements of the zoning and development bylaw. However, housing and affordable units are in demand, especially in the area of the city where residents do not have to rely on owning a vehicle. Many services, amenities, and employment are available in the immediate area within walking distance, such as government buildings, retail, entertainment establishments, and public transit. The neighborhood context is very walkable. This is a very low to medium density type of development within the downtown core. So on balance, when we're considering this type of a variance, there's many sections in the official plan. I've listed them in my report that would support this type of development. I've also listed a quick summary within the report of the positive and neutral attributes and also the shortcomings. So although there are many aspects of this variance request to allow an additional dwelling unit on the property that staff feel hold merit, staff also find it very hard to support the request, given that the density is also double what the bylaw permits. It's hard for staff to argue that an additional unit would allow the applicant to make reasonable use of their property. Section 6.2.1 of the bylaw, undersized lots, talks about this, where the variance, where it talks about where the people are allowed to make reasonable use of their property. If the variance is approved, the property owner would be required to obtain building and development permit for the additional dwelling unit, and this would require the building to conform to regulations of the zoning and development bylaw and National Building Code and Fire Code. So if the permit was approved, the applicant would be required to implement things that would bring the building up to code, so it would make the building a bit safer, which is a positive towards this application. Staff would also like to comment that the applicant came forward and sought the appropriate approvals prior to making changes to the property. And it is much easier for us to make rational decisions on these types of applications when the property owner is forthcoming. However, given that the density in the building is already double what the bylaw permits, staff is in a position to recommend against approving the variance.
Mike, it's Alex here.
Yes, Alex.
The property owner, Blake Doyle, because of the quick change in the venue to WebEx this evening, Blake did show up at City Hall. He just called me before the meeting, so I told him that we would see if we could get him piped in, but it got kind of complicated. So just before, if you had any questions of Blake, because of the unique circumstances, I would be willing to call him to clarify. But I just wanted you to be aware that the property owner, his not attending tonight is not of his own doing. It's the, of course, it's the change because of today's events. So I'll just leave that with the committee. If they need to something clarified from Mr. Doyle, I can certainly facilitate that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Alex.
I have a question.
Yes, Councillor Yankoff.
Thank you, and thank you so much, Laura, for your report. I will be supporting the request of the property owner to allow him to have the changes that he requires. I'm a bit perplexed. We've got 5 positives and 2 shortcomings, but we are looking at rejecting it. So that confuses me in itself. However, I'm sure as the Jedi developers or planners, you guys have your own reasons for that. But I'm looking at all the positives, and I know that in one of the past development things that Emily talked about, she talked about 3.3.1, I think, of the official plan, which actually worked out to almost the identical reasons why we supported Hillsborough Street, which is why we're not supporting this one. So in that sense, I thank you for the report, but I will be supporting the applicant's request. So thank you.
Councillor Jankov, you are right. There's various policies in the official plan that support it, and we've listed those in the report, and staff do recognize that. However, we're in a position where it is already double the density. We have to look at the zoning and development bylaw as well, which talks about reasonable use of the property. And the purpose of a variance is to accommodate a unique circumstance on a property. The applicant already has reasonable use of the property. So from a staff perspective, it is hard for us to recommend the variance. However, from your perspective and the rest of council, we have included policies in there that allow you a bit of flexibility to make if you do have a different outlook on this proposal.
Thank you so much, Laurel. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, Rosemary, please. Rosemary, and then Bob.
Thanks very much, and thank you for your report, Laurel. Just wondering if you could clarify, I'm a little bit confused because the report says that There are currently 6 documented and legally approved residential dwelling units, which you mentioned too. But then you also mentioned that the density is already twice what the bylaw permits. So how do those two things coexist?
Because the bylaw would only allow 3 units. So the 6 units were approved back in the 80s under the RAP program. The bylaw requirements at that time were different. Currently, now they would only be permitted to have 3 units. So they have 3 additional units in the building that are considered legal non-conforming. So they have double the density of what the current bylaw would allow for. And they are requesting the 7th unit, so they're going to exceed that further.
Okay, but they are legally approved, non-conforming.
Yeah, they're not illegal units. They went about the correct process in the 80s to convert that building into a 6-unit apartment building. It was constructed as a 2-unit tenement building.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, in the early 1900s. So it originally was a 2-unit building, and then in the 80s, it got converted into a 6-unit apartment building, walk-up apartment building.
Okay, thank you very much.
Basically, in a nutshell, Rosemary, is that back when they built the place, as Laurel has just mentioned, they were permitted 6, and then the bylaw changed to reduce the permission to 3. They had 3 extras over there, so the city said, well, they're legal non-conforming. In other words, that particular spot, if it burnt to the ground and was being rebuilt, they would be required only 3 units. But as the rules changed by the city said, we will give you forgiveness for having that extra 3 units, and we'll get on with life. And that's the way things are. And then now they're back looking for not only keep the 3 units, a 7th unit. So and I'm just trying to put some clarity to it. It's if you were doing it today, you'd be confined to 3 units under the present bylaw.
Yeah, thank you.
Who was next on the agenda?
Me, I think.
Bobby, return. Bob.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I kind of agree with Alana. A few things that stood out in my mind when I looked at this was that the developer is asking for a variance from 65 feet to 57, which is 8.6 feet, which is only 13%. But the thing in my mind was that it didn't change the footprint any. The same building. It does create a low rent unit, which is probably very much in demand in Charlottetown right now. And it seems to be supported by the neighborhood. And somebody commented that the building has improved quite a bit over the last few years. Although somebody else commented that the condition is not great. So I guess there's still room for improvement. But I'll probably be supporting it for these reasons.
Can I speak? Mike?
Councillor McCabe.
Sure. So I'm kind of in the same, I'm concurring with Bobby and Councillor Yankoff as well. And even with the further clarification, for the building to be brought up to code as a result of a variance, it's not requiring any extension on the outside of the footprint. I think I will also be recommending to support this application.
Okay, anyone else?
Mike, Reg here.
Chris or Ray?
Reg.
Yeah, go ahead, Reg.
I looked at the positives and the neutrals and the shortcomings, and when I read it myself, I don't think it's based on the number of them. It's the strength of the ones we have, and although it's a legal non-conforming building, it's still double the density, and we're adding more density to something that's non-conforming. I mean, we're taking a problem and we're adding to it. And I think what we're trying to do in the city is trying to get a lot of these non-conforming buildings to get them in line with what our bylaws are for. Otherwise, we don't need bylaws. We just have to come in with some requests. And that to me says a lot when it says it's double what is actually allowed by the current bylaw that we've put in for the city.
Thank you, Reg. Is there anyone else that would like to add to the issue?
I have one more thing.
Yes.
Thank you. And you know what? Reg had an excellent point, but I'm pretty sure that the non-conforming use went in, correct me if I'm wrong, in the 80s. Was that right?
It was 1983. It was approved for 6 units.
And then the next change, the reduction, when was that, Laurel, the reduction?
No, it wasn't reduced. It was approved to 6 units in the 80s, and it's remained a 6 unit from the 80s until now.
But when did the 3 units become non-conforming?
Oh, I see. Okay, so the bylaw, we would have approved the 500 lot bylaw, I think, in 2014.
Okay, yeah. So what the city did was they refreshed the bylaw to make various changes throughout the city, and this was one of them, reducing legally from 6 units to 3 units, but making the balance 3 units non-conforming. Correct?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else?
Can I ask one more question?
Sure, Bob.
I don't think I saw it anywhere. What year did Mr. Doyle acquire the property?
I'm not sure what year he acquired it. He did state in his letter that he's owned it for a number of years. So I'm not sure the exact amount, but it doesn't sound like he recently acquired it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I think it was at least 3 years. I had a conversation with him, Mr. Forbes and I did, again, first day last week. I think it's 2 or 3 years. Okay, anyone else? Do I have a mover of a motion? It's been moved by Eleni Yankov.
No. I have a motion to support Mr. Doyle's application. Yeah, I have a motion to approve Mr. Doyle's application. Yeah, that's my motion.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a seconder? I have
I'll second it.
Councillor Bobby Durong, second by Bobby Durong. Further discussion on any point? All those in favor? All those opposed? I can't get a count from here because I only have 3 or 4 people. How many are opposed? Could you name? First of all, could you give me the names of people in favor of Councillor Yankov's motion? Go ahead, one at a time. In favor? Chris, were you in favor?
Chris, in favor.
Favor. Alana, you were for? Julie. Bob.
Bob's in favor. Bobby.
Who is?
Bobby Kenny.
I got it. I have Alana. All those opposed?
Reg?
Anyone else? Rosemary? Are you there, Rosemary?
Sorry about that, Mike. It's opposed.
You're opposed? Did I miss anyone? That's a total of...
Basil is opposed.
Who?
Basil.
Hazel opposed?
Salad.
Did Shalyn vote?
Shallon's in favor.
Opposed? Anyone else? Pardon? Shalyn was
Shallon's
what?
in favor.
Okay. You were in favor, Shalyn?
Yes.
See, it's very garbled here. Okay.
No problem.
So that's 5 in favor and 3 opposed. Is that correct? We're missing 3 individuals tonight. Is that correct? Out of 11? Me, Brown, and Tweel. Anyone else missing tonight? Ellen?
No, I think we're good.
So 11 minus 3 is 8. And I have 8 people here. It was 5, 4, and 3 opposed. So the approval pulls the day. So it passes 5-3. Now that we're out of that gang, and so I can't be accused of influencing, we've got to get away from this thing of with residents that write in and say, if you can do this for me, I can do this for you. Okay? It's like my 2 brothers many years ago. They had a public meeting in Stratford about Fox Meadow Golf Course. And after the public meeting, I said to my brothers, are you for it or against it? And the reply to me was, it depends on what the fees are. I said, it's a land use issue. It's not a bargaining tool. They were gonna vote in favor of it, as they do in Stratford at Town Hall, or against it, and their vote was going to be determined by what the proposed green fees would be. So, like, it's not a. If you get sidewalks and streetlights and some pavement, we'll say yes, and if you don't, we'll say no. That's not how you decide land use. And I waited until after the vote was done, not to skew the whole matter. But thank you very much. Now we can move on to our repeat business. So we have the first one on the agenda is the rezoning application put forward by the Arsenault brothers for 18-2 Sherwood Road, PID for 455642. So, who, I think, Robert, you are the person of the hour here?
Correct. All right, so just to start off with the application for you tonight is a request for both an official plan designation from industrial to commercial and to rezone the subject property from business park industrial M3 zone to highway commercial C2 zone in order to construct 2 apartment buildings that will provide 186 dwelling units. This is the subject property before you, highlighted in red. As you can see, you have M3 zone property directly east, an institutional zone, which is odd, but that would be the Maritime Electric Substation and Hydro Corridor to the west. And then you have CDA, which is Comprehensive Development Area, which means there's no concrete plans on what those lands will be used for in the future until a comprehensive plan is submitted and approved by City Council. So after receiving some feedback, specifically in regards to the electric substation as well as the major hydro corridor, there was concerns relating to the electromagnetic waves that frequencies such as EMF, which basically is generated by electric substations and hydro corridors through transmission of electricity. And the developer applicant did meet with staff to discuss and review the proposal. So as you can see, the initial proposal had 3 apartment buildings, all staggered back from Sherwood Road. The applicant has revised their design and has decreased it to 2 apartment buildings, and they've situated it directly abutting east of the subject property in order to allow for increased distance from the residential buildings to the electric substation and hydro corridor. From the revised site plan, I can see that they're maintaining approximately 189 feet from the nearest building to the closest property line. The substation hydro corridor itself has been situated at least 100 feet back to the major hydro corridor and around 30, 50 feet to the nearest substation. So they did revise their design to account for that. They've included additional green space, solar panels, as well as noted in the bottom right corner of their site plan, a playground and green space. This is just some renderings from the developer to show what the proposed use is. You can see the proposed Minna Jane Drive extension is just situated abutting the 2 apartment buildings with Sherwood Road running to the north of the closest building, which is identified as B1. Again, just some elevation drawings for the board to consider. And then this is basically the state of the road in which we can see the surrounding area. So as you can see, directly east of the subject property would be Seafood Express. So that would be the shipping terminal for Seafood Express, where truck trailers come back and forth throughout the site, delivering off seafood. It's just a distribution center. That's looking from the Maritime Electric Substation, looking towards east. Just note, again, I think everyone's aware of the lack of infrastructure that's afforded to this portion of Sherwood Road. So you don't have even paved shoulders, it's mostly gravel itself. And then this is looking from the electric substation down to the corner of Lower Malpeck and Sherwood Road. I would also note that the public transit, so T3, they do have a route classified as Route 11, but the nearest transit stop that currently exists is actually on the corner of Sherwood Road and Lower Malpeck. So you would be basically looking at it from this picture here, this angle or this view. So just keep note of that. And then the substation itself and the major hydro corridor that runs through. So we received public feedback, both in letter and as well as at the public hearing. There was concerns that industrial type uses such as truck terminal, electric substation would conflict with high density residential uses. There was also concerns cited by residents and also staff. There's a lack of sidewalks, paved road shoulders, and lighting. Again, which makes the site itself kind of isolated unless you're traveling by car. One thing I also would point out is that nearest transit stop on the corner of Lower Malpeck and Sherwood Road, there is no sidewalks provided along that stretch of the street, so applicant or residents that would be leaving from this development would have to use those unpaved shoulders to get to the nearest transit stop. There was also some concerns about snow accumulation on site that could be built up from the scale of the apartment buildings. And then there was, again, concerns expressed with the high density proposed use of the apartment buildings versus the low density single detached dwellings that are further down the street, closer to Lower Malpeck Road. The developers they contacted adjacent property owners. They submitted 3 letters of support that can be found in attachment E of your packages. One entity that did express support that I wanted to highlight for the board was Seafood Express, considering that they are a close adjacent property owner. They did write in saying that they supported for more housing in the area, and they did not, I guess, express any concerns with apartment buildings situated next to their site. In regards to agency comments, so even with the revised design in regards to the site itself, Maritime Electric, just conversations with them, they still object to the proposed rezoning and official plan redesignation. They still cite incompatible land uses, as well as they have existing concerns with how the area is being built up, and I guess there is some issues with water runoff impacting their substation site. So they still retain concerns in regards to the development of this site and where water would flow and potentially impact their property. Also, Health Canada did get back in contact with staff. They stated that currently there is no Canadian EMF regulatory setback required between power lines, hydro corridors, or substations in relation to residential homes. They did state for mitigation that the best solution is just to separate the residential buildings from the hydro corridor and the substation itself. EMF waves, I guess, they just drop off in intensity as the distance between the two objects are increased. So again, going back, the applicant did revise the proposed site plan layout to afford as much separation distance from the structures to the substation and the hydro corridor. However, they did state that it would be prudent to take instrument readings at selected locations on the proposed site prior to construction. This is due to the fact that EMF levels can change depending on how much electricity is running through or being generated at the station or running through the hydro corridor lines itself. And so they did state that there is the ability to take instrument readings to actually calculate what those impacts could be. And they did send supporting documentation from the International Commission on ionizing radiation protection, and they have recommended certain residential magnetic field exposure limits to 2,000 milligauss. Again, I'm not an electrical engineer, so I can't comment on that, but I can state that they stated that the instrument readings would basically, they'd be interested to see what the readings from that would result, and then they would be able to tell how impactful those EMFs could be on residents. But at the end of the day, they did not issue any concerns or objections to the proposed development. So from a pure land use analysis, staff still maintains that the subject property is situated between two conflicting land uses, both truck terminal, which sees truck transport going in and out of the site frequently, as well as the electrical substation and major hydro corridor. The existing infrastructure along the street is not designed to an urban standard. The lack of sidewalks, also paved shoulders and lighting, would make it dangerous for anyone leaving the residential development and going to, say, that transit stop at the corner of Lower Malpeck and Sherwood Road. So there's still that lack of infrastructure that is there. And then thirdly, there is a limited supply of existing properties that are zoned for industrial development. And the brunt of our analysis would conclude that because the CDA portion lands to the north is, there's no comprehensive plan for that area, that could potentially go to an industrial, like an M3, for example, or it could remain residential. There is R2 or residential lands, zone lands that are adjacent to that lands as well. But until an actual comprehensive vision or plan is presented to City Council and that is approved, this kind of leaves the subject property in a loss of identity, so to speak. So the fact that we do realize that, yes, there's a need for housing and affordable units, but we have to balance that with a lack of industrial and employment lands that the city is currently short on. And the map before you, how I broke it out was just to show you all of the red hatching shows the CDA lands that are left in this area, and potentially the remainder or balance of lands that could effectively be zoned to industrial. So again, a very limited supply of industrial lands that we have. So going through the analysis, again, I won't belabor these points. I already kind of went through it through the presentation, but there are additional residential units. Kudos to the developer for putting in renewable energy infrastructure like solar panels and providing additional on-site amenities in the form of green space and a playground. The neutral is the T3 transit route. Again, just stating it's more of a neutral because there's no really convenient or safe access to a transit stop, so that wouldn't make it positive. It would be more of a neutral. Not to say that if the developer worked with T3 to incorporate a transit stop along Sherwood Road, that would certainly help. Again, going back to some of the shortcomings, there again is just limited industrial and employment lands, and so staff's opinion is trying to preserve those lands for those highest and best uses. Again, the transportation network is limited as well as the infrastructure, the compatibility issues with the truck terminal and electric generator substation hydro corridor, and this make it the first application for a multi-residential use along this portion of Sherwood Road. And I can answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Any questions of Robert?
I do, actually. Thank you, Robert, for the report. I was just trying to, of course, first of all, kudos to the developer because there were some pretty important points brought up, and he took the time to go back and try to kind of figure it out and work with what the concerns were before we have to recommend this to council. My biggest concern at that point was the Maritime Electric substation and the proximity to that. I guess I'm going back to the what we just approved with the Myrna Jane Drive variance there too. Is that someone indicated in that report that it was proximity to the Maritime Electric substation? Is that pretty close? Can someone refresh my memory on that?
From the Minute Jane one, the property is around the corner, up Sherwood Road and around the corner onto Mount Everett Road.
Yeah, no, I'm just wondering about the proximity to the substation.
I can't hear you, Julie. Are you close to your phone?
Yeah.
Or are you
No, I'm on my computer. I was just wondering how close it was to is it a similar proximity to the substation?
Well, it's up the road and on the corner. Or no, up the road and up Sherwood Road and around the corner onto Malpeck is the previous application we had tonight.
Yes, yeah, I know. I just wondered, is it like 100 feet? Is it 500 feet from the substation? Because that was mentioned in the report.
Robert, any input to that? The distance of the Minna Jane apartment building that Laurel presented this evening earlier, the distance it would be from the Maritime Electric installation compared to where the Arsenault Brothers proposed apartment building is to be put. Are you there, Robert?
Yes, I did not work on the Minna Jane Drive development, but just taking a quick look on my GIS, I did a quick measurement from the corner of that property to the hydro corridor. I have a length of approximately 930 feet.
930 feet.
It is situated effectively as a further distance separation from the hydro corridor and the substation.
Okay. Does that help, Julie?
Yep, and just to follow up to that, so is there a big thing other than sidewalks, because there's development going everywhere with no sidewalks, and that's not on the developer, that's on us, but I'm wondering, is it because you're trying to preserve the industrial land use? Is that your big reasoning?
Through the chair to Councilor McCabe. Yes, staff's main concern is, again, looking at the limited lands we have for industrial growth and employment lands. So because there's just such limited lands available for that, we are seeking to preserve those lands for those types of uses, as well as probably the fact that a multi-unit apartment could be situated in a better context in a different area, like a residential area. But again, you have those conflicting land uses with the substation and the truck terminal. But yes, the majority of the analysis is coming from the fact that we have a shortage of industrial employment land.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Anyone else? Rosemary.
Yes. Thanks very much, Robert, for your report. And my main concerns with building these apartment buildings 189 feet from the substation are the concerns from Maritime Electric. They're still in opposition to this plan, even with the revision to the plan. And, I think we have to take that into consideration and not promote development if they're saying that they think that, it's not a good place to be putting residential units. You also wonder about the safety of, proximity of having kids in the neighborhood. I can imagine people trying to climb the tower. We would hope that wouldn't happen, but it just doesn't seem like it's a great area with the lack of sidewalks, lack of bike lanes, no other residential uses along that part of Sherwood Road. It just doesn't seem like an area to promote residential development, especially when you think there's probably going to be a lot of families renting those apartments if they should go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rosemary. Anyone else? Questions?
Mike, it's Alex.
Alex, yes, go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, just, depending on when you want to do it, like the developer is on the line tonight, and the developer did make a number of changes to his project. So, either after your deliberations, it may be prudent to ask the applicant to answer some of the questions that maybe some of your colleagues are bringing up. And again, it's just that he was asked to go away to make changes. He's made the changes. So, and he may not wish to speak, but you may just want to afford him the opportunity to comment on some of the discussion after you folks have deliberated. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, Alex, on that point, I was just going to bring it up that I got a glimpse of one of the brothers and also of one of the representatives earlier, so I know they were on the line there somewhere, so I was going to let these guys do their thing, and then I would request or ask if anyone from the company would like to speak. So,
no, that's fine, thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else, folks, to add to this issue? Is everybody, would we like to hear from the developer or their representative? Yes, Rosemary?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask one more question. So, Health Canada recommended doing measuring the magnetic fields, I believe is what they said. So who would be responsible for doing that?
Robert, I would expect the developer, would it not?
Yeah, that's correct. So if the developer could discuss, I guess, with Maritime Electric, they would have the instrumentation that could conduct the readings. So they could look at what the levels of those EMFs are on the subject properties. So again, not a requirement by Health Canada, but one of the best practices in their response to back to staff.
And Robert, the information that you shared from California, they actually gave guidelines around distance and strength of the magnetic field. So will we be following those guidelines, or it seems like this is a pretty big issue that we need to look at?
Mike, it's Alex.
Yes, go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, so on this issue, I mean, as much as there may be documentation in California, we have to rely on the whatever regulation we have in this country. And I think what Robert was receiving back from Health Canada is that they can't defer to any regulation or any issue that this would violate. They may have some subjective commentary, but I don't think that they have. I don't think they have a methodology that would say yes or no to any type of magnetic resonance impact. So it's a bit of a tricky one, but the reality is that even though they may have in California, I think, as we all know, is the most liberal or progressive place in the United States, and they may be correct, but we would have to defer to whatever the regulations that exist in this country, particularly with Health Canada, which is the ones that would deal with that, because we don't have the resources at the local level to deal with contemplating that, or the provincial government. So I just thought I'd clarify. Thank you.
I understand. Thank you, Alex.
Yep.
Anything else from anyone before we call upon the developer or the representative? Are you okay right now, Rosemary?
Yes,
okay?
thanks. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. If David Arsenault or Greg Morrison is within earshot, do you want to add anything to the situation?
Yeah, we can add. I actually had a presentation, updated presentation prepared. Robert, do I need access to be able to share content or anything like that?
I gave you presenter view, David, if you want to share your screen.
Okay.
How's it going, David?
More technical issues. No, we're just loading up a screen here, and then I'll flip it over to
Ellen?
Okay. Can you folks see my screen here now?
I can see you.
No, can't see the screen. There we go.
Okay, sorry about that. Sorry for the delay. So this is This is just our updated report. So these are a couple of render photos that have already been shown, but we just wanted to kind of reiterate our positive offerings with the proposed rezoning request. It's a pretty, I guess the application is a rezone from M3 industrial to C2 for the purpose of residential. So there's 186 dwelling units, so it helps to address housing needs. There's 10% of the units are going to be dedicated to affordable housing, which also means that the project goes through design review, which makes sure that the city has a say in what gets approved as far as the look and feel of the buildings, which are directly next to other apartment buildings. So it's a good location, in our opinion, for apartment buildings. It incorporates renewable energy infrastructure. There's a couple of main mandates from the official plan that it also is in direct alignment with. Compact urban form and infill development and efficient use of existing underground city services and infrastructure. There's housing. It's housing near centers of employment, and there's on-site green space and recreational amenity space. And it's actually, these are basically copy and pasted from Laurel's report earlier on the Minna-Jane Drive project, which is it's 66 feet away from our lot. So the concerns raised in Robert's report, the lack of amenities. You just go back to another report from today's meeting that kind of goes against that. So there's plenty of amenities in the area. Sherwood Road infrastructure. There's water and sewer that run along Sherwood Road. We're willing to partner with the city to provide an active transportation route in front of our development. So it's obviously there's residential neighborhood on the other side of the Maritime Electric substation, which we'll get to in another slide. But that's something we think it'd be a huge benefit for not only the people living in the apartment buildings that are being constructed or approved next door, but also our project. You can kind of see the proximity to amenities. This is kind of it almost looks like a lot of the same maps and whatnot from the Minna-Jane project that was just approved for 60 units. It's right next door. So it's within earshot of a lot of different amenities and jobs. So our new site plan redesign that Robert already went over, and one point that we'd like to kind of stress here is that we're allocating 30% of our site to green space. So there's 1.65 acres of green space on our site, which is the same amount of green space that would be required as a minimum for a 16.5 acre subdivision that goes in. So to kind of put that into context, like there's one report that's going to vote at for planning board saying there's green space and amenity space, and it was around 10% of the lot. We've got 30% of our lot dedicated to green space with a playground and courtyard. So I think that's just we're trying to go above and beyond what's required, and then also we're listening to council. I believe Councilor Yankoff brought this up at the public meeting that it's a good opportunity to make sure that green space and amenity space is focused on, which we tried to do here. Next slide is just on infrastructure. So it is located along a T3 transit route. It's actually right along the route, and it would obviously it makes sense that there's no stop in front of our lot right now because it's a vacant field. But it would be make pretty good business sense for T3 to put a stop close by this area, because there's, as you can see, there's apartments directly next door, which is the 60 unit that exists. This is the 97 unit that's actually under construction. It might be under appeal right now, but it's under construction. The first floor is constructed and it's going up. And then the 60 unit that was just approved, which, if you can see my mouse, we're across the proposed street from a 60 unit that was just approved for a major variance, a 60 unit that exists, and a 97 unit that's under construction. To kind of there's the point that's being made about industrial land and how there's a lack of it in the city, which could be the case. It's quite obvious that there's more of a lack of rental housing land in the city than industrial and employment land. There's people not moving to the city because they don't have anywhere to live. They already work here, but there's nowhere to live, right? So this is an opportunity to progress in that area. And this slide just kind of pretty simply shows the truck routes in the city, of which is all your green lines. You've got a red circle, which is where our development is, and it shows that we're not on a section of a truck route on Sherwood Road because of the residential neighborhoods that surround the western side of Malpeque Road. Now, the eastern side of Malpeque Road is quite clearly industrial and runs, several truck routes, whereas the western side in this area is, it's West Royalty, it's a subdivision off Upton Road, it's a residential focused area with also a lot of retail in the area too, which makes sense next to high density residential or even subdivision land. So this kind of shows that clear cut corridor between the two sections of Malpeque Road that you're looking at. Industrial and commercial on one side, and then a clear cut between the industrial side and then the residential and retail side. So to kind of talk more to the point of residents along the Maritime Electric substation, there's Salisbury Avenue and Canterbury Court in here that that have backyards that abut up against a much larger and more intense section of the Maritime Electric substation than our property would. And we still moved our buildings to move them well outside of the recommended number of feet, but we would be willing to take any kind of metering that the city would request on that side of things. It might be in the best interest of the city or Maritime Electric to do the same thing on the other side, to make sure that the safety of those people in those backyards, it's a residential family neighborhood back there. It goes without saying that should be a point of concern to Maritime Electric. I don't know if there's been any action on that. We reached out to Maritime Electric numerous times on this to try and work with them and we never heard back. Seafood Express is one of the commercial or industrial users in the area, and they're in support of our rezoning application. And basically, this is just last slide showing our land circled, with several residential type neighborhoods in the area, and then your retail center with multi-unit apartments. There was one comment just to the report earlier was stormwater management as a concern for Maritime Electric. It's right now it sits as a vacant field, so there is no stormwater management. In my process of getting a permit for a building, it should be noted that part of a process of getting a permit is a civil engineered stamp plan that shows stormwater management within the lot. So that's kind of a simple, that's one of those simple steps that are taken on every development to make sure that stormwater management is adhered to and done, based on an engineer's recommendation, not based on an electrical company's concerns. We're adding the green space and the recreational space are a point that we, think is just it's a development proposal that offers more green space in there than the lots next door that are proposed for 60 units. So we have a 1.65 acres of green space on our lot, and there's a 60 unit, next door that was just approved that sits on a lot less than our lot is giving for green space. Another point is just that going back to that truck route, like Seafood Express enters and exits off of Minna-Jane Drive, which is where planning board is recommending to approve apartment buildings. So I think there's just a few of those points that we want to kind of get across. It kind of makes the process confusing for us as developers whenever we're getting two reports in one meeting that are completely contradictory in a lot of senses. So if there's anyone that can speak to that to kind of ease that confusion, that would help us moving forward, even if this, whichever way this goes. But anyways, I really appreciate your time listening, and thank you.
Thank you, David. Any questions of David, folks? We're good?
No, I'm trying to whip him up. I'm still trying to decide where I'm at with everything. He made some good contradictory points for someone that's not a planner, and he's created doubts for me. Robert, is there anything you can add to as a rebuttal or response to that?
I guess guess the only thing that I would offer in response to that is that land use, when we're looking at applications, we look at them individually. So the Minna Jane Drive, that property has entitlements already. It's already zoned C2, so it can be developed as multi-residential. It's also situated between other commercial uses, and it's closer to adjacent commercial uses as well than this subject property. And as well as the fact that by rezoning and redesignating this land would effectively remove additional industrial development, industrial land outside, remove it from the city surplus. And the thing that I guess I would also note is that I would disagree that there's not a hard boundary, since the land adjacent to it, which is Seafood Express, is actually zoned M3, which is industrial land. So it is abutting industrial land. The CDA across the ways north of Sherwood Road. It'd be interesting to see what type of concept would come from that as well, and that could also kind of dictate how Sherwood Road would develop, at least that portion of Sherwood Road. Again, for the amenities itself, we're dealing with a self-contained site. The only way to get to those amenities would be really trip by car, because there's no really sidewalks or active connections to any of the other uses, and there's no guarantee that Minna Jane Drive extension will go through because it's in legal contention right now. So that's what I would offer up. Thanks.
Thank you, Robert.
And Greg, do you have anything to add here, Greg? I think.
Yeah, I think even just from what Robert was saying there, Seafood Express was obviously built fairly recently. That apartment building complex at one point, as the Cordova development at 197 Minna Jane was CDA at 1.2, and decision was made a couple of years ago to rezone those to residential adjacent to industrial land. This development's no different. I mean, it is industrial land. It's next to the Seafood Express, just like the apartment buildings on the other side. And same goes with Maritime Electric. Concerns raised about it, but at one point the Canterbury Court residential, low-density residential subdivision was approved adjacent to Maritime Electric. Obviously, they haven't had concerns with any kind of health effects next to Maritime Electric, and they've been living just fine there at Canterbury Court. So I think there's a lot of unknown across the street, of course, but there's a lot of precedent that was set on this side of Malpeque Road. So again, obviously, we're in support of the development, but I think there's enough pros, not only with what we presented and how we amended our plans, but also what the official plan is stating.
Thank you, Greg. Okay, let's move on, boys and ladies and gentlemen. Any questions from the floor? Any questions from these committee members?
I have one.
Yes, who's speaking? Atlanta? Is it Atlanta?
Yeah, that's me, Councillor Yancock. Yeah. Yeah, thank you both for your report and the revisions that have taken place. It's a real tough one. We've got 5 positives, 5 shortcomings. We've got solutions from the developer in terms of willing to work with street transit, also adding in the green space provisions and the affordable housing, and the comparison to other developments that have the same struggles. It's a real struggle. I'm perplexed at the Planning and Heritage Department and how they rejected it. However, I see from the positives and shortcomings, and it's going to be a tough decision, but I think I'm going to have to support this development.
Thank you, Elena. Anyone else? We're not in that stage yet of, I'm just looking for anyone who has questions or concerns. Okay.
If I could clarify. So I'm wondering, do we need any further information from Maritime Electric? I mean, they've stated their opposition, but they haven't really elaborated a lot other than to say the land use would be in conflict with their property. But do people feel that we need more information from them?
I don't know, Robert. What do you think? I think if they had more information, they would have given it, to us already. But it's not my call. Robert, what do you think?
Yeah, I discussed this with Maritime Electric as follow-up. Their position, they still maintain the same position in their original comments. I don't think that would change. I'm not sure if additional information would change their opinion as well. So they just let their initial comments stand.
Robert, if I can just clarify, I mean, they haven't really given us any evidence. They've just made a statement. They haven't given us any evidence to support why they're saying that there'd be potential conflict of land use.
Yeah, so when I was holding with Maritime Electric, and I questioned them about the land use compatibility, because I believe, Rosemary, that's probably what you're referring to.
Yes.
They basically stated that, they would divert to Health Canada. Health Canada came back. Again, they have no requirements. So again, that was asked about the concerns raised by Maritime Electric. But then they just stated again that they didn't want to see necessarily multi-residential uses against their property, like they already dealing with the single detached dwellings to the west. So they just stated that multifamily, in this instance, they just weren't going to change their initial recommendation. And in regards to the drainage, that is correct that, any development that would go through a building permit process would have to be required to submit a drainage plan that's compliant with their bylaws. So again, I'm not sure if those concerns still extend from Maritime Electric for their objection, but that's all I could actually get from them. They are difficult to get a hold of, but that was their position. They just maintained their initial objection.
Okay, thanks, Robert.
Thank you, Robert. Anyone else? Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Greg, Dave, for the information provided. Thank you very much. Okay, gentlemen, ladies, are we ready for a motion on this particular issue?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Mike, I can put one forward.
Okay, Reg, it's moved by Reg, and what's your motion, Reg?
I want to recommend that we support the planning department recommendation to reject the rezoning and redesignation request.
Okay, do I have a seconder of that motion?
I'll second it.
Second by Rosemary. Basically, not to put words in your mouth, just to make sure I have it right. This is to support the planning department in their recommendation to reject the application. Anybody argue with that? Okay. More discussion or issues or concerns? Floor is open. Okay. All those in favor of this resolution. Now remember, it's a resolution to reject, right? All of those people in favor of this resolution, please give me your name one at a time, please. Reg?
Reg, yeah.
Rosemary?
Rosemary?
Say yes. Rosemary?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, I'm sorry. Just going around in my mind. Basil?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Bobby?
Yes.
Chris?
No, I'd like to support the developer on this one.
Okay, you're on the other, okay. Alana?
I'm going to support the developer on this one.
Okay, Alana. Julie?
I'm going to support the developer on this one as well.
Developer? Julie?
Thank you.
Shalyn?
I'm also going to support the developer.
You are going to support the developer?
Correct.
Did I miss anyone? I will go with the department. Okay? 4-4, Reg, Rosemary, Basil, Bobby. On the other side was Chris, Alana, Julie, and Shalyn for a tie of 4. I would have to break the tie, and I will go with the Planning Department. 5-4. Thank you.
Mike, it's Alex. You may just want to clarify. I think the developer realizes that this is a recommendation from this group, and it'll go off to the next council meeting, and council will make the final decision.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for that, Alex.
Yep.
Okay, moving on, we have another revisit to our. This is the first revisit, I think. An update on McCrae Drive and Norwood Road, presenting by Emily. Emily, are you there?
Hi there, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I guess so. Silence is consent.
Perfect. So just a quick update on a matter that was before you folks already. If you can see my presentation here. So on November 2nd, 2020, the Planning Board recommended that City Council approve a request to rezone a portion of the property at McCrae Drive and Norwood Road from single detached residential R1L to low density residential R2 zone. And this is to create a subdivision with a mix of single and semi-detached dwellings. So from there, on November 2nd, 2020, at the monthly meeting of City Council, City Council deferred a resolution regarding this rezoning request. And the purpose of the deferral was to provide the applicant with an opportunity to further revise the application, and that is to retain the existing single detached residential R1L zoning on all properties fronting McCrae Drive. So you can see on the slide the application that was considered by council on November 9th and by you folks as well on the left, which shows previously there was the R2 zoning along the portion of McCrae Drive on the southerly portion of the site. So as per section 3.10.6 of the Zoning and Development Bylaw, written notice was provided to the applicant on November 10th, just outlining to them City Council's deferral and the purpose behind that deferral, and requesting a revised survey subdivision plan in the case that the applicant wanted to undertake the revision that Council was putting forward. So on November 25th, 2020, the Planning and Heritage Department received a revised subdivision plan, which you see on the right there, from the applicant, and you'll note that the revised subdivision plan retains that existing single detached residential R1L zoning on all properties fronting McCrae Drive, and this is in accordance with City Council's request. So we just wanted to advise you folks of this revision to the preliminary subdivision plan, and let you know that this matter is scheduled at the moment to be considered by City Council at the upcoming monthly meeting on December 14th, 2020. So this is just an update more than anything for you folks. And again, welcome any questions.
Okay, any questions of Emily, folks? So basically, this is going back to what R1L lots all along one side of McCrae Drive, and that is what the request was, and that is what is being presented. So this will go to council as a request to approve subdivision. Is that correct?
Yes. So of course, in the previous report to the planning board, and what was considered by City Council was a recommendation from planning staff to approve of the application, and you know, that recommendation stands, that we continue to recommend approval, and you know, acknowledge the efforts on the part of the applicant to respond to City Council's request.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions, ladies and gentlemen? We okay? I think it's fairly straightforward. Okay, could I have a mover to move this recommendation to City Council to approve the, what we call, the amended on,
So moved.
Radar. Who's that, Chris?
Second it.
I never got the mover yet.
Hazel?
Basil, okay, thank you.
Second. Second.
Pardon? Okay,
Second.
Councilor Yankoff. Okay, I have the mover and the seconder. We know what the text of the recommendation or the resolution will say. Any more discussion, questions, concerns, suggestions? Anyone want to say anything at all on this issue? Okay, having none. Ready for the question? All those in favor of the motion? Okay, I'll run do it by one at a time. Alana, Councilor Yankoff? You in favor?
In favor. In favor.
Lance and Chris?
In favor.
Reg?
In favor.
Basil?
In favor?
Bobby?
In favor.
Shalyn?
In favor.
Julie?
In favor.
In favor?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, I'm getting there. Rosemary?
In favor?
Okay. That should be it. That's 8 in total. That's what I should have. Am I missing anyone? Okay, the resolution passes unanimously. That ends our program for this evening, folks. Thank you very much in these troubled times to take a part of your day and come in or phone in or tap in or whatever and help us out with these 6 issues we had to deal with. Some of them aren't easy and most of them are difficult. Anyway, thank you very much. Have a good evening. Stay safe. Stay healthy.
And Mike, it's Alex. Just the reminder to the councilors that we have a planning committee meeting right after.
Yeah, Councilors Yankoff and Councilor Abe. Thank you, colleagues.
Yep.
Good night, everyone. Safe drives home.